Hi, welcome. Thank you for coming. My name is Tim Ryan. I run a boutique website agency over in Southsea called Echo 80. We have been going for, I think, like 5 years now. And I've worked doing web design and web development for the last 8 in total. We work with all kinds of different businesses, from local councils to economic steering groups, defence companies, local plumbers. I've probably kind of, tackled all of it in my last, during my experience. And this presentation is to teach you the basics of web and SEO. So, there's a lot to get through, as you can imagine. It's a big topic. I've tried to keep it all fairly high level so we can get through it and not get too bogged down in the details, but this should give you a pretty solid introduction into all the basics you need to know, and especially with SEO, what it is and how it works and that kind of thing. So we're going to begin by looking at an overview of different website options. So these might be types of websites, platforms, and hosting. We're going to look at the golden rules for website design, which will cover structure, content clarity, and visual appeal. And we're going to be spending a little bit of time looking at user intent. So that's making sure that anything that we do build online is specifically geared towards the people who are going to find it. What do they want to find out? And how are you going to serve them that information? And the next part is all about SEO. So we're going to look at SEO basics, so keyword research, on-page SEO, and schema. If you don't know what any of that stuff is, don't worry, we'll get to it. Local SEO and Google business profiles. Again, schema markup and user experience and how that influences SEO as well. So, jumping straight in. Types of websites. So websites have different purposes depending on what your business is, depending on what you're trying to communicate to your audience. You might have an informational website that will have a content-driven focus. It will have fairly simplified navigation, and it'll have a lot of call to actions throughout the pages. So if you have a service-based business, then you're likely to have sort of an online brochure-style website. This will have all the information about the services you provide, additional information about blogs and articles and things, resources that people might use, links to other services that might be useful to them. You might have an e-commerce website for people to go online and buy your products. Is obviously very key to that. So things like product listings, shopping carts, customer account management, so people can look at all of their orders, order refunds, get in touch with customer service. That all falls under that category. And booking platforms. So things that have real-time availability and scheduling, automated confirmation, notifications, integration with third-party systems. So just making sure that people can find a place to stay and book it in. So what makes up a web platform? So an example of a platform is something like WordPress or Shopify. Have any of you heard of Shopify? It's fairly big now. Like when I first started, it was pretty brand new. It was quite nice to see an accessible e-commerce kind of system that handled everything pop to the front. We'll talk about individual platforms shortly. But all web platforms have some universal features. So we have a content management system. So this is where you put together all of what's on the page, any posts, all the media, so image files, video files, anything like that. If you've got different events, there'll be a dashboard in back where you've got all of those events listed and you can manage them on as an administrator. So content management systems, they allow users to create, manage and modify website content without needing to code. It used to be the case. I don't know if anybody used to have a play around when they were younger, sort of building websites with HTML, CSS and JavaScript, which even I nowadays barely ever touch it. I like to say to people, because occasionally we get clients who want a very bespoke build, something very specific to their business. But my kind of metaphor is, if you're at home and you want to talk to all your friends, you go and buy a phone. You don't build a phone. You see what the best phone is for what you need, and then you build that out. You customize it with apps. You make it your own. And that's the approach that all website agencies will take these days. It's also suitable for managing various types of websites, so blogs, e-commerce, and more complex sites. So things like WordPress will include features to do pretty much anything you want. Shopify will be a little bit limited on multimedia stuff and really flexible layouts, but in terms of the e-commerce side of things, it'll be fantastic. So picking what platform you want to use is going to depend on what the key focus of your business is. And I'll just mention this as well. So themes are for within a particular platform. So they're pre-designed templates that control the visual appearance and layout of the website. They can be customized to match your brand. And there's plenty of free themes around. There's also plenty of premium themes. If you are building a website, if you're using an agency, you're doing it yourself, the likelihood is you'll have a pre-built theme and then it will be customized to your needs. So themes determine the overall design but may limit flexibility. So certain free themes won't have all of the features that you need to customize, adjust layout, show things in specific ways. If you've got a really kind of strong brand guidelines and you need, specific image treatments, borders and everything, the way the navigation looks, if you're customizing it yourself, you can, and you've got a very flexible theme, you can do a lot of that. If you're buying a pre-built kind of theme, which might be limited, or if you're using a free one, you might be limited on how much you can actually do to it and how much you can get it looking the way you want. Certain themes, certain platforms use different code as well. So for example, Shopify, which again we'll look at soon, that uses something called liquid code, which is an entirely different markup to both HTML and CSS. It's got a lot of similar features, but just understanding that if you're going to have a go at something, then it's worth sort of digging in and seeing how much knowledge you'll need to customize it yourself. And page builders also pretty much included in every type of platform. So a page builder is something that is a sort of separate entity to a theme, but often they work together. It's a drag and drop editor that allows you to kind of move stuff around on the page. So you get a visual representation of what the website's going to look like. You can put, you'll have simple widgets to kind of put images in. You can type all your text. You can have previews so you can see exactly how it will look. It just means that you don't have to manually code everything again. They provide flexibility for creating custom layouts, and they are very useful for beginners. I still use something called WP Bakery primarily for WordPress, which I find has got a good balance of flexibility but simplicity as well. So again, there's a lot of different options depending on what platform you're using. So web platforms. So we'll start with WordPress. We'll start with good things. So it's highly customizable. I'm sure you're all familiar with it. There's actually two types of WordPress, and this trips people up. There's a hosted solution, which you can find on wordpress.com, and there's a self-hosted solution, which is wordpress.org. The difference with wordpress.org is that you are essentially installing it on a server yourself, and you're self-hosting it and you're self-managing it. You might pay for that server from a hosting provider, but ultimately all of the website files, the directories, they're all under your command and you can dig into them and you can do whatever you want to them. WordPress.com is much more like Wix or Squarespace, where you're able to extend it using certain plugins, but you aren't ultimately able to kind of dig that deep into the code and change templates and that kind of thing. It's very SEO friendly. There's tons of additional SEO plugins. Most people just use, the top 2 or 3 that are available, things like Yoast SEO. They're open source, so generally you can see how it's been developed. You can dive into the code if you want to. If you've got security concerns, if you're a larger company and you want to make sure that certain things are being covered off, you can actually just jump straight into the directories and see how it works. For things like Shopify, for example, you can't do that because it's all hosted on their own servers, and so the overall architecture of the system is not so transparent, let's say. WordPress is often my choice for most people. It's got massive support and market share. So 43% of all websites on the internet are powered by WordPress, and that's 478 million of them. This is in the pros column, but something to be aware of is that because it's so ubiquitous, when people are looking for things to exploit, the biggest target is the one that they go after. So staying on top of things like security and plugin updates and things are very important, because as soon as a vulnerability is found or somebody finds a way to exploit, then it's important that you jump into your WordPress website and update it to whatever the latest version is, just to make sure that you're not caught out down the line. So cons, there is a steeper learning curve than some other platforms. So if you're comparing it to things like Wix, which is very much drag and drop visual editor, understanding how post taxonomies, customizing it with CSS, sometimes these are required, but there's a little bit more of a learning curve and understanding required in order to kind of keep that up to date. As I mentioned, there is a maintenance responsibility. So you need to handle the hosting, so you need someone to host it, and you need to make sure that you have things like security plugins, and ideally if you're taking backups as well. So we will go on to hosting shortly, but one thing to be aware of is to find hosting that offers incremental daily backups, because if you or anybody else messes everything up, it's very, 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 very nice to be able to just click one button and have your website exactly as it was the day before, and then you can mess it up again if you want to. The other con about WordPress is that it can become bloated. WordPress works with plugins, so you are essentially getting one main core system, but each bit of functionality that you add tends to require another plugin. If you go too crazy with these, then it can slow the site down. It's just important to remember it's not a bucket. You can't just throw everything at it. You still need to be quite sensible about where you want to prioritize the file sizes, the resources that you're allocating to your website. So the other ones to mention here, I've kind of bundled Squarespace and Wix together because they share a lot of the same qualities. So pros, you get a selection of high quality templates. For anybody who's had a look at creating their own website and ever investigated Squarespace or Wix, it's very nice to kind of go to their wonderful theme folders and see all the brilliant designs that you can use to have for your website. But obviously, very few people are going to want to take it exactly off the shelf and keep it that way. It's got a lot of integrated features, so built-in features like e-commerce, analytics, blogging, without the need for additional plugins. And it's great for beginners. Like I say, it's very easy to kind of set it up. It's all self-hosted, so you never have to worry about sorting out additional hosting or worrying about security plugins or anything like that. It just is what it is. You're on the Wix website, you create your Wix website in their system, and then they publish it for you. You never have to worry about the kind of back-end nitty-gritty stuff. The cons is there's limited customization. With WordPress, pretty much anyone can make a plugin if it serves a purpose, and they can put it on the WordPress plugin directory. If you are on Squarespace and Wix, they will never want to include any kind of extensions to their functionality which haven't been very, very thoroughly tested. So you are generally limited to what features and functions that either Squarespace or Wix or other similar companies have already produced. So that can be a little bit limiting sometimes. There's higher costs. If you're self-hosting a website, it can be very affordable. If you are using Squarespace and Wix, they will have fairly strict kind of pricing scales, and these can often work out to be a little bit more expensive than just kind of building and hosting it yourself. Obviously, that price has to be considered when you're comparing setting up hosting, installing WordPress, doing all the technical stuff, building out, versus just going on one of these platforms, getting a nice thing and tweaking a couple of things and setting it live. So there's a time element that you're saving, but the cost ultimately tends to be a bit higher. And most importantly, they are not ideal for complex sites. So if you've got a portfolio, if you're an artist, if you've got a fairly simple blog, if you're selling maybe one or two particular things and you want to kind of promote that out, if you want to have a personal website just as a sort of online CV, something like this would be probably quite suitable. I know graphic designers who use Squarespace. I know other people who've used Wix. Shopify is an e-commerce platform. Like I said, it came out a little while ago, probably, I don't know, I became aware of it maybe 8 to 10 years ago. It is purely tailored for e-commerce. So if you've got one product to sell, or I did a project with 1,800 products to sell, Shopify is the one for that because it's got so much built-in analytics, it's got such good categorization and product management that it just makes sense to go all in if you're purely driving sales. So it offers a full suite of e-commerce tools, payment gateways, inventory management, and shipping options. It's secure and reliable, so it handles the security hosting and updates automatically because you're on their platform. And it does have a pretty good app ecosystem. So over the last decade or so, as different requirements have come up, they've invested their own time into developing certain functionality, but they also have like an app marketplace where other companies, other agencies and developers have created different solutions to provide different functionality. And all of those are tested and there's a lot of reviews, so you get a pretty clear picture of what's going to work for your website and what's not, depending on what you need. The cons: transaction fees, additional fees unless you use Shopify payments, which can add up. Generally everybody uses Shopify payments, but just to be aware, if you are kind of set on something, if you're using something like Square or PayPal and that needs to be the way that you take money, then the costs will increase beyond just the transaction fees that payment provider is asking for you, because Shopify will charge you extra on top. There is limited customization. The themes that it provides can be great and they're wonderful out of the box. They have a lot of customization options, but as soon as you need to kind of break the template in any way to get a particular look or feel that you're going for, that can be quite hard, because then you have to dig very far into the site's code and then start adjusting quite complicated liquid layouts and things. And the cost. So the monthly subscription fees, like Squarespace and Wix, this will be higher if you are adding additional apps. So certain things, we had like a store locator app on one project I worked on where somebody had like 20 different stores across the country. They wanted a map that they could list all of their locations and stuff. That probably, it added, I don't know, £19 a month or something to the cost, to the recurring subscription for the website that we were working on. It's not a lot, but it does add up. If that's just one feature of a website and as your business becomes more complex, that can start getting a bit out of hand. At the end, I think the company I was working for, who were using Shopify, they were spending around, their subscription fees were about £140 a month, but they weren't paying for complicated hosting. They didn't have to worry about security, and they had in-house knowledge about how to update the design and change it all and code it all and everything. So it wasn't too much of a cost sink for them. So Webflow provides a full kind of design environment where you can lay out your website exactly as you want, again based on different templates, but then you can, at the kind of click of the button, publish it directly from that dashboard. And so you can have a live version and your design version, and you can make any kind of changes you need in real time. So it has a lot of design flexibility. It's still fairly new to the market, but it does offer advanced design tools for creating fully customizable professional websites without needing to code. That sounds like a sales pitch, doesn't it? It's got built-in hosting, and it has clean code output, which just means that if you are, using a different platform, or if you're building a website or something, sometimes you just end up with code that you don't actually need. This is very light, and because it's very light, it means that the page code is light and therefore faster. The cons are there is a significant learning curve. So you will need to dive in a little bit to understand things like CSS selectors or JavaScript actions and things if you really want to kind of get the most out of this. If you're doing something that is more than, I don't know, a dozen pages of fairly straightforward content, then it might get a little bit complicated. Pricing, it is more expensive compared to the other platforms, even compared to Shopify. And there are limited third-party integrations. I will say, just to caveat that, it does have very good support for more advanced development. So if you had a plumbing website, for example, and you want to create a calculator so somebody can figure out, I've got 2 rooms, I need, I don't know, 12 lengths of pipe, I'm not sure. But if you wanted to create a widget kind of calculator in something like WordPress, there's probably a plugin for that already. But with Webflow, if you worked with a web developer and they were able to create that widget, that functionality is very easy to just kind of drop in as an iframe, or actually just drop the code into a directory, and then you can show that within your website. So it's not impossible to show to do really advanced things in Webflow, but the kind of out of the box options are a bit limited. And I'll just speak briefly about hosting. Okay, so you're familiar with the process. Most places now offer specific WordPress hosting. You go online, they'll give you a dashboard, and you can basically create your website from there or install it directly onto their system. A lot of different hosting platforms will offer things like migration as well. So if you're hosted somewhere else, they'll be happy to kind of log in and grab your website, take a copy and stick it on their platform for you. So shared hosting is cost effective and it's the cheapest option, and you can have a bunch of websites all in one place. It does have limited resources. So when you've got a hosting server, all of the websites on that server, the resources they need, so every data packet that's going to and from that server, somebody's typing in clicking on an image and it's opening, that requires the server to do something and send some more information to that person. So that's happening thousands of times on every website. Because it's a shared hosting, what that means is all of those websites that you're sharing with are all on the same server. So you are essentially sharing resources with all of the other websites, which means that if one of those websites gets a ton of traffic, then suddenly yours is going to suffer as well. The key thing about this is that despite that, most hosting sites providers have organized their servers in a way that this doesn't happen. Once you get to a point where you're getting 1,000+ visitors to your website anyway, you're probably going to want to move on to something like a virtual private server or something like that, which we'll speak about next. But here are a few of the hosting providers that I recommend. Crystal, Bluehost, LCN, GoDaddy and SiteGround. These are all highly reliable hosting providers. Crystal have the absolute best customer service you could ever hope for. So if you do ever decide to go for like a WordPress self-hosted website, those guys will help you from start to finish. So the other options are VPS, Virtual Private Server. Like I said, this is sort of more of a next level kind of above shared hosting. So they'll have dedicated resources. So it provides a portion of the server's resources, RAM, CPU storage, that is reserved for your website, offering a more consistent performance. So where I was saying that with shared hosting, everything's just in the same bucket, and whatever requests are going into that bucket are getting prioritized regardless of how that impacts your website. With virtual private server hosting, it's a similar setup. So you are in a bucket with a lot of people in a data center, but you have a partition, like a portion of the resources are solely allocated to you. If people aren't using them, then they're not being used. If people are using them, then that's on you. So if you get 1,000 visitors to your website in 10 minutes, then your website will suffer. But everybody else's kind of won't. So it protects you in that way. And obviously the reverse is true. So you're never impacted by the traffic that anybody else is receiving. They are scalable. So you can just add more GPUs, add more RAM, add more storage space as you need it. And you do have greater control, so it offers more control over the server environment, including root access and the ability to customize software installations. That's very high level and you probably never need to worry about it. But it is useful if you are working with a particular agency or you're building something a little bit complicated which might need to be moved around, or if it has very, very specific security controls. And the final one, cloud hosting. So this will be things like DigitalOcean, Amazon, AWS. So this is a bit of a different setup where you're essentially creating a bubble, a droplet in just an insane amount of server space. And you're like the VPS hosting, you're deciding what dedicated resources that you're including. So you set how much RAM you want, you set what CPU and what storage you need for your website. You can kind of dynamically scale that as traffic increases. So as your website grows, you can just click a button and scale it up. The way that this is priced, just jumping to here, is pay as you go. So as you use these resources and increase them, those prices that you're actually paying will nudge up. You do only pay for that and what you use. So this tends to be a good solution for very, very complex, large websites, because as they add different features, if they've got, if you're H&M and you release a new product line or something like that, you don't know what kind of traffic you're going to get. Having something like this that automatically scales is fantastic, because as those numbers goes up, as the traffic goes up, it will just go, okay, cool, we'll give you all of this, but then at the end of the month you'll just be charged. Whereas VPS hosting and shared hosting, if you get 1 million visitors, your website will crash and you won't be able to sell anything. So I'm just going to bang through some rules for website design. This should be fairly intuitive. We're all used to using the internet for the last, however many years. So it's fairly straightforward when it comes to website structure. Having well-organized sitemap will support user flow and SEO. People can find what they're looking for, and Google will know what you are doing. So if Google knows, then for search engine optimization, it's got more of a chance to be like, here it is, because we found it on this website, so you can too. And grouping related content together, so product categories, service types, blog topics, all of that feeds into just solid hierarchical structure. Navigation, again, simple and intuitive menus. Visitors should be able to find key information within 2 to 3 clicks. Depending on what information your website is providing, it might be 1 or 2 more than that if it's pretty niche. But generally, you want people to be able to find what they're after. A really good example of this, I didn't include it on the presentation, but next time when you get home, or next time you need some hardware or home improvement stuff, go on the B&Q website, because obviously they've got just a ridiculous product catalog, like thousands of different things. But it's fairly easy to find what you're after pretty quickly, even if you're not using the search. Things are grouped sensibly. You can find you've got home, you've got hardware, tools, all of that stuff. So understanding those structures and making sense of it yourself, that's absolutely key. Consistent placement of navigation elements across all pages. So that just means making sure you've got the same buttons in the same places where everybody's going to expect them. And things like breadcrumbs and internal links to guide users through deeper pages. For those who don't know, breadcrumbs are basically where you have your kind of URL structure actually visible on the page. You might have come across blogs or pages where you see something like this, where it will have the site name, and then it will say services, and then it will be whatever page you're on at the top. User experience. So prioritizing fast loading times and mobile friendliness. So I think Google now primarily ranks all page speed on mobile response times, not desktop response times. So having a website that is super fast, or as fast as you can get it on your phone, is going to benefit you greatly when it comes to your site being found and shown in search results. Having clear calls to action, CTAs, make it easy for your visitors to take action. It happens all the time on news sites. You'll be halfway through an article, but you'll get a link to another article to go somewhere else. Or you'll be looking through a service that somebody's got and it'll have a big like book now button. That's the CTA, that's a call to action. So understanding where those should sit in a page, how to break up content, but most importantly, having some call to action on the page, regardless of what the page is, even if it's a personal blog post or something like that. Having a big button or a contact form where people can immediately engage with you or take an action that you would like them to take is very, very, very important for website design. And then finally, ensuring accessibility by using readable fonts, contrasting colors, and simple language. We'll talk a little bit about accessibility in a minute, but there are guidelines. So not everybody has the ability to interact with website in the way that most people do. It's very important that when you're building out a website, you're not accidentally discriminating against people who can't navigate it with things like screen readers or be able to navigate it without the use of a mouse, who might just be only be able to use things like keyboards and that kind of thing. So just quickly, this is an organized web structure. So you've got a home page, you've got categories, you've got subcategories, and it just fans out from there. But you've got a clear hierarchical system. There's a very disorganized web structure. So as you can see, you've got these kind of subcategories, but then you've got weird kind of, I don't know what you call them, second cousins doing like bizarre things. Most importantly, you've got this kind of section here, and this would be referred to as orphaned content. So that's something that from that home page, you cannot find a navigation route to those particular pages. Some websites will do this intentionally for SEO purposes. So some websites might have like a particular sales page that they're using for a particular search term. So if somebody's searching for terracotta teapots, I don't know, then this company might have a particular terracotta teapot. It could be represented here, but they might want it to have its own sales page. They might want to draw a lot of attention to it, and that might be the page that they want to kind of elevate for the purposes of SEO. But we don't want to do this. There's never really a good idea to have content that isn't easily navigable from whatever your home page is. So content clarity, just a couple of tips. Keep text simple and to the point, avoiding jargon and overly complex language. I mean, that goes regardless of what your particular business or service might be. Use headings, bullet points, and short paragraphs to break up the content and improve readability. Prioritize the most important information above the fold, and that's really just the landing screen. Anything below where you have to scroll is called below the fold. And ensure content aligns with user intent, answering key questions visitors may have, which we will get onto. And then just to go on to the accessibility, using alt text. So alt text is a little text description that you can put in against any kind of picture, image, media file on a website. If I was to take a photo of you guys, put it on the website, advertising, the next great Gosport Council event, the alt text for this would be a little line of text that says, lovely people drinking tea, enjoying a fabulous web and SEO presentation. And the reason that's important, again, from an accessibility point of view, because not everybody can sort of interact with images in the same way. We've also got things like using high contrast text. So many times you'll see like gray text on a black background. I can be quite guilty of this because I think it looks cool. But there are guidelines, and there's actually a tool. I'm going to risk it. I'm going to click it and see if it works. So there's a lot of online tools like this. So this is web accessibility in mind, and you've got a contrast checker. So you can have the color of whatever your text is, and you can compare it against the background, and it will give you a rating of how accessible and suitable that is. So having something like this is very useful when you're kind of like planning how to represent your content visually. There are things you can do as well, like having light modes and dark modes. Some people have preferences. Those things can be keyed to people's preferences. I don't know if anybody lives their life in dark mode on their laptop now, but you'll notice once you get to certain websites, they'll all be dark, and you just won't even, it won't occur to you, but then if you see it on somebody else's, it looks completely different. It's the other way around, because it will pick up on those preferences on your actual machine, and it will prioritize those for you. So make all interactive elements, e.g. forms and buttons, easy to use on both desktop and mobile. And again, another thing to be aware of is there's what's called the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines to ensure compliance and inclusivity. These are important. There's always the risk of making something look really cool, but if, like I say, if what you make isn't accessible for everybody, then it doesn't quite fulfill the purpose, and you're excluding a lot of people who might want, very reasonably, to enjoy whatever it is that you are telling people on the internet. I'll skip through this. A clean, uncluttered design with plenty of white space, visual hierarchies, high quality relevant images and videos that enhance user experience and support the content. That's important, because it's very easy to just kind of find pretty stuff and think, oh, that'll be a wonderful kind of header, without seeing how it affects the overall context. And ensuring all design elements, fonts, colors and icons work together to create a cohesive professional look. Most of the websites that I design, which is a lot, use a maximum of 3 fonts. Normally just 2. You'll have like a display header font and you'll have like a body font, and how those two sit together will be up to your design, what looks best. But having a ton of different fonts and things, is nobody wants to interact with that. Then brand consistency, making sure you've got whatever your brand colors are, your brand identity is represented on the website. Fonts, logos will reinforce that, and ensuring that online branding matches any offline marketing materials. I think it's something like 7 different touch points or something people use to inform a buying decision. So if they go to your website and they have a good route around, but then they go to your social media and everything looks a bit different, or you've got a different handle, your name doesn't quite add up, or something like that, that kind of breaks the coherency and the congruency of what you're trying to do. And it's going to make people question, not necessarily you are who you are, but your attention to detail and the quality of what it is that you're offering, if everything looks a little bit incoherent sometimes. And again, use imagery that reflects your brand's values and resonates with your target audience. Next up, we have understanding user intent. So, information, booking and sales inquiries. Essentially, this is where the rubber hits the road. People are visiting your website for a reason. Understanding what that reason is very, very important. And it sounds obvious, but it's actually something that gets missed quite a lot. So people are seeking details about your business, services or products. So you need to ensure easy access to essential content about who you are, what their questions might be, and what it is you can provide them. So using blog posts, guides or case studies to provide valuable information and keep users engaged. That can really be beneficial because it adds a wealth of extra information that goes beyond just a products listing or a simple service listing. So for bookings, visitors intending to book a service or accommodation. So this again is just an example of user intent. So people might want to make a booking. People might want to book a particular session here. Provide clear and prominent booking options. So book now buttons, calendar integrations. There's loads of different solutions. Even if you are a micro business and you're one person and you are, let's say, I don't know, a hypnotherapist. There's services like Calendly, where you can embed a calendar or you can embed a booking form directly on your website, front and center. People can see what services you offer and people can click, interact with it and book it immediately. Streamline the booking process with minimal steps and ensure mobile friendliness for ease of use. Very important. Getting locked up in a payment gateway where you're not sure if your card's gone through or something like that is guaranteed to kind of, nobody wants to pay for something twice, so you kind of go, oh, well, just leave that and I'll check my bank in 20 minutes. Making sure that you actually got the tickets that you wanted. Also minimizing the steps from landing on your homepage to actually getting the thing kind of done and dusted, what you actually wanted to order or book. is going to be critical, because nobody wants to be going through endless kind of like fill out these bits of information, next page, fill out those bits of information, then the credit card, then probably like a two-factor authentication with your bank, and then it all adds up. And you want that process to be as smooth as you can make it, while of course prioritizing the security of your users. Sales. Users who are looking to make a purchase or explore product options, highlight product pages, pricing and shopping cart access. So having those key, obvious, ubiquitous things that we expect visually represented on the website and very easy to access, goes without saying. And offering detailed product descriptions, customer reviews and clear calls to action, like buy now. So things like Shopify will provide you a variety of different ways to kind of structure those product pages. You can choose whether you have a buy now button or if you have a add to cart button. You can choose whether you have like upsell products that might pop up and you might want to add to your order, like when you're on, say, Uber Eats or something like that. But understanding how people interact with the website, how likely they are to kind of want additional things added to their cart, and making it, tailoring the experience as much as you can around your kind of user archetype is going to be key to kind of having a successful website. I'm actually working with somebody who's had an online store for about 1.5 years, and they have no detailed product descriptions, and they're wondering why nobody's buying their stuff. They're just mainly selling t-shirts. You know, people know what a t-shirt is, but people aren't, you can see people will click on the product and then they'll sort of sit on it for a couple of seconds, and then they'll be like, oh, I don't know about this, because it simply, by not having a product description, it diminishes the trust that the person has in that website, in that product, that it will actually arrive to them. So the attention to detail here is kind of key when you're selling stuff, especially if you're selling something that is very personal or bespoke. People want to know what that process is. People want to know how it was made. People want to know if it was ethical. People want to know if it was printed on recycled cotton. So as much information as you can make about that. And then for inquiries, so this is just visitors seeking contact or further information before taking action. So this might be for like a very service-based business, people like me who create websites. I don't have anything that you can buy off the shelf. I'm hoping that people will contact me and ask me a lot of questions or tell me about what it is that they need to achieve. So having that contact feature, very clear contact us pages, live chats, anything like that, to enable the beginning of those conversations. If I don't have that on my website, then nobody's ever going to get in touch. So, SEO, search engine optimization basics. First question, what do search engines look for? Why is Google putting one website above another? How is it figuring all of this out? So we're going to look at that very quickly. And the first thing is relevance. That's what it's all about. If you ask, I want to buy shoes in Gosport, you want a list of shoe shops that are based in Gosport. It's that simple. If you have like more very niche things, if you want to find out a particular like potter's glaze, then you want the page that has the most information about that. And so using the things that we were talking about in the design side, so having clear language, clear structure to your website will allow Google to index, which just means it will kind of scan all your pages and try and figure out what your website is doing. Find the most relevant page for that search and then give that a go. And then it will see if the people who are searching for a specific potter's glaze click that website. If more people click it because they spend a lot of time on that page because it's relevant, then it will start bumping it up. If people go on the page and then go no and then disappear, it will start going down. So relevance is key. High quality informative content that answers user queries and provides value. Keyword usage that aligns with what users are searching for, including semantic variations. And fresh and regularly updated content to keep it relevant and engaging. Keyword usage, this kind of ties in with relevance. If you are talking about something quite specific and somebody is searching for something quite specific, whatever the specific thing is going to probably appear a lot in that page. So Google's going to give it a go. And if it's answering the questions that people are asking, it will start bumping that up as much as it can. On-page optimization. So this is where things start getting a little bit techie, but regardless of what platform you are using, these kind of things should be fairly intuitive. So things like title tags are things like H1s, H2s. So H1 is what that page is. This will be the title for the page. So you shouldn't have ever more than one H1 on any page on your website. If you're just looking to make the text look the same, doing a H1 is a shortcut, but it confuses the content, and Google looks at it and goes, is this what the page is called, or is this what the page is called? And as soon as it starts asking questions, you're in a bad spot. So meta descriptions, header tags, we will come to the specifics of these shortly. Alt text we talked about in terms of images, so having text descriptions of what each image is actually showing, and clean keyword-rich URLs that clearly describe the page's content. The specificity is important, making it real clear in that URL structure of what the page is all about will definitely benefit. Google or Bing will also look for things that are related to user experience, so fast loading times, mobile optimization. If you've got a page that won't load fast, it knows that people aren't likely to wait around for that page to load, so it'll be less likely to show the page. Clear navigation and intuitive site structure, and low bounce rates. So a bounce rate is simply if somebody goes on your website and goes no and comes off it straight away, that's a bounce. Bounce rates are always going to be a very key piece of information. We were talking earlier, people will land on a product and then they won't go any further, they'll just jump back straight out, for example. That's a bounce, and those indicate that whatever your user was expecting to find, they're not finding it. So adjusting your website's content to make sure that it's relevant is incredibly important. Backlinks are links from other reputable sites. They signal authority and trustworthiness to search engines. And quality matters more than quantity. Links should come from relevant or authoritative sites. So if you are a business guru, if you're doing business consulting, and you did an interview with Forbes last year, and you've got a link to your website on Forbes's website, that's a good backlink. That will elevate your site in terms of rankings significantly. And that's something definitely to consider regardless of what it is that your website's about, regardless of what products or services you're selling. If you can find a way to get your website referenced by one that is well known with millions of visitors and is highly authoritative, that will improve your overall Google or Microsoft Bing search ranking. And technical SEO, so the use of schema markup and sitemaps and robots text. You don't need to worry about this too much. This is a bit more technical, but again, the sitemap is just sort of like a text representation of the overall structure, the folder structure of your site, how it works as a hierarchy. Keyword research and targeting key phrases. So keywords and key phrases are essentially interchangeable. A keyword is just something like socks. A key phrase is best socks in Gosport, or autumn 2024 woolen socks. It is a keyword, but it's just a bit longer. It's a bunch of them together. This goes back to understanding user intent. Focus on what your target audience is searching for, including informational, navigational, and transactional queries. Autumn 2024 socks is informational. Navigational might be socks near me. Transaction might be, I'm not sure, cheapest socks. This best budget socks or something like that. Align keywords with the different stages of the user journey. So you can have a bunch of keywords or key search terms that are for people who are investigating solutions, like trying to figure out what socks they might want. What socks are better versus other socks, or where can I buy socks now? So understanding, sort of picking up sort of keywords for these different sections and addressing those, making sure all of those different search terms are present in your website or your content or your blogs is going to cast a wider net and it also allows for an added layer of specificity. So here's some tools for keyword research. So Google Keyword Planner is one. We've got Uber Suggest and Answer the Public. These are all very different tools, but they all essentially do the same thing. They are a resource for you to be able to figure out what people are searching for. There's also Google Trends, which allow you to compare different search terms against each other, and while it won't give you the exact volumes, it will give you a score out of 100. So one might be 100, one might be 20. So you'll see that one is only gets 20% of the search volume of the other. Long tail keywords, that's things like romantic getaways in the Cotswolds. So if you have something that is a longer search term and you have a page that is built specifically to answer that search term question, the likelihood is that your page result will be the one that is shown. Analyze competitor websites to find gaps and opportunity in keyword use. This is a great tool, so you can always find people who have great websites and are doing things successfully. And you can see what kind of content that they're what search terms they're gearing their content towards. You can see if they've got, you might notice that somebody might have like a particular blog post or a particular sales page for something. And it's always worth asking, like, why did they put this together in this way? What keywords are they trying to target? What searches are they trying to capture by creating this particular page? It used to be the case, I don't know if anybody remembers, but when you go on a website, especially if it was sort of like a plumbing company or a heating or something that was sort of trade-based and local, you would just have like a page or like a whole footer would just be locations like Southampton, Portsmouth, Havant, Gosport, Bridgebury, the whole thing there'd be tons. And that was how people used to try and game that system by having like a specific local keywords in their pages. Thankfully, Google doesn't like that anymore. And if you do that, it will actually squash you down because it has all kinds of crazy algorithms going on in the background, making sure that people aren't sort of taking advantage of its sort of analysis. Targeting key phrases. So optimize content around primary keywords and related terms, which basically means write content around the search results that you want to be seen for. Use key phrases naturally throughout the content. So don't, like I say, slam tons and tons of things into an article, like loads of words that don't make sense, but you're just trying to tick boxes. And incorporate location-based keywords for local SEO. So you might, regardless of what you're doing, if you're a graphic designer, in any blog post, you might want to mention that you're from Gosport? Portsmouth? Alverstoke. Okay. Alverstoke Gosport. So, but even that's important. So having that geographic reference just mentioned in a blog post might help it show up for more local searches and things like that. So I've got some examples. You're running a brewery, you want to sell more of your gluten-free beers. You've done a bit of research and you can see that best gluten-free beers in the UK is a search that comes up a decent amount of times, enough to warrant putting together a blog post. So article name that you might create is top 10 gluten-free beers in the UK you need to try. So you can review and rank the best gluten-free beer options available in the UK, focus on taste, availability and brewing methods. Of course, yours will probably be somewhere near the top. But you might want to include phrases that aren't exactly this phrase, but they might be similar or adjacent. Where to buy gluten-free beer in the UK, gluten-free craft beer options, those kind of things. Try and find other search terms that you can weave into the content so that you're capturing a broader group of searches, not just that one key phrase. Another example, we've got a submarine museum down the road. So if somebody's searching for HMS astute submarine specifications, if that's popped up once or twice, you might want that person to come and visit your submarine museum. So you might want to create a blog post that is specifically tailored to answer this particular search. Again, using additional phrases that complement it. And romantic weekend getaways in the Cotswolds, top hotels and hidden gems. I know it feels like everything is always like a ranked system or a comparison of things like that, but in reality, the reason that most articles and blogs and things like, or at least so many of them are. It's because people like them. People want to be able to find all the information that they need in one blog post. They want to read something, feel informed, feel like they've been able to kind of compare the different options and not have to go and do it again on a bunch of other sites. So creating an article, in this case, for romantic weekend getaways in the Cotswolds, top hotels and hidden gems, that in and of itself is going to take care of a lot of searches beyond just this. So you have top hotels in the Cotswolds, hidden gems in the Cotswolds, all of that stuff will be captured by an article like this. Again, it goes back to user intent. So what ultimately do you want from a person? And by creating this article, by creating this blog post, is it more likely that you can sort of move them into a buying phase? Is there something that you can upsell? Is there more information that you can direct them to that brings them further into investigating your business? So there are decisions that need to be made. But just simply having a calendar of things that are going on throughout the year, specific days, events, that kind of thing, is a great way to kind of start building out a kind of content plan, and definitely helps keep things on track. So yeah, definitely worth doing. On-page SEO, title tags, so include the main keyword in a concise title, so that's your title for the page. And meta descriptions, again, are another opportunity to add a little bit more depth and description about what the page, article, post is about. Header tags, I kind of explained. Again, this comes down to a sort of hierarchy. Every article has a big title and then different levels of depth underneath that, all the way down to, I think it goes to about H6. Keyword placement, so making sure the keywords are naturally included in the content. URL structure we talked about. Alt text for images we've already touched upon. Internal linking is good as well, so just making sure that people have access to other pages. If you've got one article about romantic getaways in the Cotswolds, you might link it to another article about other things to do in the Cotswolds, something as simple as that. Mobile friendliness, make sure that it works on a mobile. And most important for SEO is local SEO. So Google and Bing business profiles. By setting up a Google business profile, you're basically saying, this is my business, it's based here, I'm a real person, this isn't just a website that's floating around. I'm interacting directly with Google. I'm going to give you some very key information, what my business name, address, phone number, website, all of that stuff, opening hours, and you're defining that. So by having that business profile, not only are you likely to show up in the search results, but if you're the most relevant business to whatever the query was, so if somebody is searching for, your name pottery, your name socks, or business name anything, if it thinks that there's a good chance that the business listing it has relates to the search term, it will show that, and therefore you will kind of sort of jump the queue on all of it. So it's definitely worth setting up a Google business profile. Making sure things are consistent across all your online listings. So if you're also advertising on places like Facebook, Google will notice. And local keywords. So target location-specific keywords. This is back on your blog, this is on your website. If you have a boutique hotel in Edinburgh, make sure that you're saying Edinburgh a lot. Incorporate these keywords in page titles and meta descriptions. And then also pump people for online reviews. Once you've set up a Google business profile, it will actually provide you with a specific link that you can send to people, and they can click it and they'll automatically be on Google with a little box where they can tell you exactly what they think of you. Encourage customers to leave reviews, so you can do that through automation. So if you're selling products, you can add that to the like an automated email after somebody's bought something, whether that's immediately, or you can even automate something to go out a week after. How did you find your XYZ? It's important to respond to them as well. So the more you respond and you actually interact with your business listing, the more Google is like, this person is definitely a real person. This is definitely a real business. They're replying to all of their reviews. They're clearly customer engaged. We're going to give them a little Google boost and get them a little bit closer to the top. Schema markup, I've mentioned it a couple of times. Schema markup is a type of structured data that helps search engines understand your content more clearly and display a richer search result. I won't go into this too much, but it's just like you have H1s, paragraph tags and that kind of thing. It's a way of including very specific information like opening times, event names, products like price, availability, product ratings, that kind of thing. These are things that are going to be fairly universal across the whole internet. Every product is going to have a price, a star rating, stock levels. So by including that information marked up with schema, Google will be able to pull that information out and then provide it in its search results in a little bit more of a detailed way. When you ask your Google Assistant what time something is open, it's the information that it's pulled from your website that has that schema markup that is most likely to reference. Benefits for SEO for schema is that it enhances visibility, and it increases click-through rates. And how to implement: you can add schema markup using tools like Google Structured Data Markup Helper or plugins like for platforms like WordPress. And you can also check your existing website with the rich results test, which will have a look through any page that you put into it and tell you what schema is already in place and if it can read it correctly. So this is just a recap. Have content, have engaging content, have your site as fast as you can make it, especially on mobile. Make sure the navigation around the site is super easy. Have clear calls to action telling people to book or contact you or buy something, and make sure that the internal linking of your sites is relevant and easy. And like I say, try and make sure that any bounce rates that you identify through analytics that are particularly high, do everything you can to adjust the content on whatever page that is to make sure it's relevant and that people want to stick around and read it. Oh, we made it. There we go.